Morning friends, afternoon friends, evening friends, wherever you are in the world. Glad to have you, and this is a quick chart update for what went down or how I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment. So this may or may not be interesting for you, but this is kind of like and all about patterns and how and why they repeat. So quick heads up lesson for you. I'm not sure you'll like this one, but this particular pattern is very disproportionate, but it is a pattern, and I'm going to show it to you. In short, this for me, this is Bitcoin USD. By the way, I'm using an onboarding platform. So Bitfinex has had some leverage spikes. Binance is interesting as a trading platform, but I'm going to use an onboarding one. It's just slightly more stable. So this here is broadly for me a deep extended left shoulder that kissed and met a certain point. You can see support there and you can see resistance here. I always expect resistance to just be run. Largely you went down here and over there. Incidentally, there was also a fractal of inverted head and shoulder in here and there, and that's why we've got that neckline right there, a little baby one, and that did meet its target, so you can see it quite easily. Pop and pop. But it's the bigger one that's more interesting. It's the bigger one that's more interesting. So I'm going to get straight on to the bigger one. You then had that. Now you might say, wow, that's kind of small relative to the other one. Yes, it is, and I like that. I like that in head and shoulders. And what you'll also notice, there we go, so maybe that'll be better. So essentially you had a deep right shoulder, complex, then you had a microfractal inverted head and shoulders, and then you had a bigger one. And the bigger one, they all bounced at this key level. Now remember, key levels for us should always be just run. So you were resisted there on a wick, you were resisted there on a wick again, and then eventually you broke, and you always break a key level with momentum in the same way you broke it with momentum downside there, you broke it with momentum upside there. In short, that's a neckline for me on a disproportionate inverted head and shoulders, and in the right way. In the right way it's disproportionate. What's the right way of being disproportionate? Don't you just want pure symmetry and proportionality? No, I'm exceedingly good with an immense amount of volume. Hey, come back, you. Go back to the drawing mode. I'm exceedingly comfortable with an immense amount of volume all coming in here, driving this up super impulsively. That's how it should be on the right side. And it is pretty damn good. So we are good with that. And the sell-off was getting thin on volume. The sell-off was getting thin, couple of little moments and thin. And then once you started to move, you were strong. So that is good. The key value of that is it brings in the 3,550. So I'm actually going to switch to a snag draw that I prepared for this. Just so that you can see this. Left shoulder, right shoulder, head. There was an HVF. We drew the funnel. The funnel is stop at 3.5 and 3.550. So that gives us a zone that I've grayed out. That grayed out zone goes all the way to where we are at current, and might explain why there's such a battle royal, and why I say to you key levels of significance is the 3,500 to 3,550, the new 6,000 to 6,500 level that you may recall that we were bouncing in and around for a long time. Kind of had this soft floor at about 6.2, and in some ways it's on occasions it went above 6.5, but that was the point of that. Okay. So that little micro HVF made its target, got another wind up, that made its target, it boosted. This inverted head and shoulder made its target. So if we text that was your target up top here. So you had a confluence of levels. We'll learn about that on a program. Head and shoulder target. And it's a bit of a confluence as well. So we'll purple that out. We do our targets in purple. Pretty in the purple, he says. So we do that. And you can see there was a confluence of level. So what's actually happening is fractal, the big push up, you're getting a mini fractal, a small squeeze compression. Then you get an attempt at a bigger one here with a big pump. So you're getting pump coming up. So there she goes. There's your push up. Then you're coming back down. You've got an ascending grind line, another smaller little up and downer, which is giving you a bigger ascending HVF structure on the grind line. You then are braking but failing to make the target. Braking but failing to make the target. So you get a green push up, you're winding up, you're squeezing, there's the grey line and the red line on the ascending grind, you're braking, and then you exhaust, you go sideways and quiet for a while, you capitulate. Then the next stage starts again. So the capitulation is the end of the first hole's attempt. You get a fractal, you hammer out the final low. Fractal, hammer, squeezing it down, boom, hammer out the final low. Then you get the pump again. That is that moment there. You go back down, you fall back down, you create an ascending grind, you get your second and your third. You have a reasonably sized fractal attempt to make a target. You break, you fail, you go sideways, you start the third cycle, major capitulation. Now what you'll also notice is, if I highlight here, is that's kind of the low by the fractal here. So let me choose a color I haven't used. Pink. Yeah, is it strong enough? Is he strong enough? That's pink. That is on that dark blue line. And then you make a new low. I'm going to have to put it here and move it because there's too many layers on my layered cake. There we go. Again, hammer out the low between the final dump and the first pump of the main fractal. Then you get the breakout of the main fractal, but the failure. Each time you're getting failure of any pattern, you're then going sideways, you're grinding and low vol, and then you capitulate. Capitulate, fractal, downside move, another pink square here. You get your first push up, you're squeezing, you get an attempt at an HVF squeeze structure, you get your pump, and the pump is the only part of the move, sideways, and you capitulate. Now what you'll also probably notice is that this right here, let's see if I can grab one of these lines, no I can't, is no longer getting to the other side of the blue lines. So over here we have, okay, you make the blue line, let's do this one, okay, you make the blue line, roughly like that, and then you get to the bottom of the blue line, you get to the bottom of the blue line, this is dropping, the bottom of the blue line, this is now failing sooner, it's not getting up here, it's not getting to this juncture at all, it's a big no, it's not happening. So we go not happening, we get a, let's see if we can get a stamp, snag it, give me some stamps. No, we don't want numbers. We'll see if it gives us something. I'm playing with toys here. So anyway, so the grind line breaks, the capitulation, then again, smaller fractal. Dip down on the hammer in here, and then compressed the pump that goes higher. Dip down on the hammer, pump that goes higher. Dip down, the pump that goes higher. So the fractal is the final hammering low on the blue line, pump that goes higher. The fail to the blue line, the pump that goes higher. The fail to the blue line, and the pump that went higher. So whilst we were shorting here, because it was at a critical level, we were also keeping an eye on money management and recognizing that if the pattern repeated, it could pump to go higher. So the minute this starts coming back, you realize that's it. It's just the tradition of the dips being brought back up into the pump. So there's an underlying support for now. There is an underlying support for now. So let's do a green arrow. Do a green arrow, please. Make him a green arrow, please. Green arrow, please. No, you don't want to do it. I'll try and do it manually then. So what actually happens is there's a clear sign of descending support, but let's Microsoft just piss off. Can I do some work? Can you leave my flipping computer alone? I'm talking to people. Don't you understand? Get out of here. Okay, so without the the corporatocracy invading our space, as they often do. You can see repeatedly at this blue line there's support coming under. So there's kind of a descending degree of support. But this is also juxtaposing with this grey zone that now got punished, and actually the barbarians broke the main gate, but they were thinned out and they were sent back out, and you're trying to repair it, and you've got the weakest of your rallies, because you've only really just taken back the capitulation, and then you've got just a small add-on. So these are getting micro, these are dropping in scale. This was steeply ascending, this one flattened out a bit more, but was the largest of the cycle, the yellow zone. The white zone was the most aggressive, with the steepest byline underneath it on the bottom, but had a big capitulation, fractal and dip. Then this had also very attractive sell-off, which we were lucky to be part of, and then fractal, and then a final push. Now this is the smaller sell-off. So what's actually happening is we're getting a compression. We're getting a compression across the top here. We're no longer getting to the other side, the blue line. So what this is saying is that the buying power to take you back across the zone has now dropped. We'll stay with our pink. Let's get the arrow on there, and we'll make him pink and dash so he's not too dominant. And we're getting the compression across the tops, and we're battling to hold the grey zone, which is embedded just under the 3,550 neckline, from 3,5 to 3,550, which is why I say to you this is now under some pressure. So whilst you've got the green arrows coming in from the top, you've also got the red arrows. Well, let's stay there. Stay in pink. New arrows, please. You've also got the push down here in red, across the top, that's seeing us come down and down. Get out of it. I was on arrows. How did that happen? So we grab him again. Excuse me while I battle with my my app. Please stay on arrows. Please stay on arrows. Thank you very much. We're getting this strong compression across the top here, and I would say what's happening is you're getting a D-Day event. You're getting a D-Day event, and the 3,550, 3,500 is that event. So you're being squeezed in both levels. So what's the key point of significance in all of this is that there is a moment of truth that is coming, and it could have even been today. I was doing live updates throughout today in case it was the one, because this could be a very attractive trade and could be the reassertment of the downside that we've suspected could occur. But in the same way, for now, as long as it's sticking to the script, it's sticking to the panel of final capitulation after the big capitulation, final capitulation of the big capitulation, then the spike and rally, then the wind up, the spike, the failure for target, the down, etc., etc. So it's a fascinating cycle that we're now in 1, 2. So if I put numbers to this, it's in my take in terms of what's repeated, and we picked up on this quite early. You're in 1, you're in 2, and you're in 3 in the blue. And we're now in a micro version, which is 4. So they are reducing in scale as well, in terms of how we're rolling. So we've got an ascending, the biggest, the smaller, and smaller still. And how does this transpire? Well, maybe it tries to wind up like this, the grey and the red line again, and get another little incremental push up higher over here, but then it could set up. It'll not be very far from our grey zone. It will not be up top here, because we've got this reducing of the highs and this fatal attraction with looking for the trapdoor on the grey zone between 3.5 and 3.550. So a little fractal squeeze into the corner here, which is what I'm kind of scenario casting, which is HVF phrase word. You'll learn why it's called that. We will have many scenario casts of what this will be one, a final little push up, and then that could be a great entry short round just to be on the 3.6s. If it confirms to type. It may just say, do an accelerated version and give up the ghost, and there's exhaustion now in the gray zone, and you spill from here. Any of a number of scenarios could occur. Okay, so that is your Bitcoin analysis as to why the 3,500 level is a critical level and how we've been descending ever closer to it. Across the pink squares on the bottom and across the top. We've ceased to be able to make it to the other side of the tops. The fractals are getting smaller. The upside impetus is weaker. If you compare these two here to these two, it's significantly weaker, and it's off a lower base. And it's had a capitulation. Now, of course, everything is to scale, so the capitulation is also weaker, but that capitulation took both the green legs up, back, and took you lower or to the same depth alone as the last low, plus you got the fractal that dipped you down to the blue line. So the blue dashed line is indeed getting its revisit repeatedly, and the top line is slowly being walked away from. So there is a D-Day moment coming between the pink line and this blue dash line, and of course the gray line. It'll give up the gray line first, or it's got to take the pink line and re-expand up into this blue channel that we've drawn. So that's my take. That's where we stand. If you guys find this interesting, pop over to the webinar on 30th. We do a lot of pattern analysis. That's what we do. We are pattern traders, particularly utilizing the HVF method. Trading is not for everybody. If you can't own your own outcomes and whatever happens in your trading, please don't come. It's not for you. If you are prepared to own your own outcomes and recognize that whatever you do, win, lose, or break even, it is your trade, you're welcome to come and join and learn a skill of a lifetime. That's it from me. That's my take on Bitcoin with all the charts and drawings. Hope it's interesting and useful for you. There is method in the madness. What will happen? Many will say this has been quite a moderate pullback, and that means it's going to break to the upside. The reason why I don't subscribe to that view is they haven't understood that there's a floor here, and it's being squashed against that floor. That's why it hasn't been able to progress too much more on the downside. This downside had to take back a lot of what that downside had given up. So these green moves took it almost as, slightly, marginally lower. So it took it all back and a little bit more with the final capitulation. So there's been rally, sell-off, but the sell-offs, when they come, have been the better part of the trade. And the rallies have always failed to make geometric targets to the upside. So it's a natural pattern which continued. So we've never traded it long, and we only look for the short plunges, and that is clarity on the method. And the key point is, when we let go for good this gray line, there will be quite a lot of exhaustion along the bottom potentially for holding it up, and all these buybacks that has gone on. We had exhaustion that took place in the 6,000 to 6,500. I think it took a lot longer there than it will take this time, because people are hurt. People are more hurt than normal. We don't know who these people are. They may be hodlers that are buying the dip, but some of them might have got really hurt the last time they were doing it. Maybe miners, who knows. The point is that narrative and that detail will come out in time. I don't need to know it. The game is to secure the trade, and this is my suspicion. So the long-term scenario for me is maybe you squeeze a little bit now overnight, sitting trying to hold this level. You might get a minor little pop out the top, and then you could set a little bit of sideways, but that sideways here was very quickly over in the hammer, and then you could be in for a spill. The next major legs of capitulation, here were the major legs of capitulation. The first in stage 1, in stage 2, and in stage 3. The next major leg of capitulation, especially if it's starting anywhere in this range, is probably going to clear and hold below for a rally from under, where this will now turn resistance for the downside, as my probability view. However, if we're wrong and this squeezing across the top has been too excessive and there's been too much selling, in other words, this red arrows have been more dominant and they more exhausted, there could be selling exhaustion instead of buying exhaustion. You could have a deeper push up, revisit to the blue side over here, that will be kind of larger than is implied by the reducing scale. That could happen. I think the other scenario is slightly more likely. So we don't know. We'll be watching. But that's my take, and that's my assessment of it. 3.5 key level, historical neckline. This target performed to its target. There was a cluster of targets here. You can see how that cluster of targets was a key level of significance that you sat in there before capitulating from there. Okay, bye for now. I'm Francis Hunt, the Crypto Sniper, webinar the 30th, if you are of mind and it's suitable for you. And I'll catch you on the other side.